Millions of college students will be heading back to campus this month, and a lot of opportunities and challenges are waiting for them. Christian young people especially need to have a dependable support system of accountability and encouragement. But that's hard to come by when you're in a new city, a new location, and you feel isolated. Augustine Mendoza knows a lot about that. He's the director of spiritual life at Oral Roberts University, and he's been actively involved in partnering with parents and local churches to foster the kind of spiritual community that students need. Mr. Mendoza, welcome to the Stand Radio.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
You know, statistics show us that a lot of students who are relatively involved in their home church go through a period of being disconnected from a faith family. Have you seen that gap play out where you are there at ORU?
Yeah, it's definitely a trend in the U.S. specifically that I've seen. And I think it's very indicative of, young adults kind of grasping independence for the first time. And I think when you have the ability to choose, for many, maybe you have a car, maybe you don't, but you get to decide, am I going with friends to church? Am I choosing to go to church? Am I getting out of bed? There's a lot of independent decisions that lead up to actually walking into a church building. And so I think what you see with young adults for choosing church is the same as a lot of other value-based decisions is, will you make that decision when no one's asking you to? Will you make that decision not because anyone says you have to? Growing up as a church kid, it's like there wasn't really an option to say no to going to church. It was my parents said we're going to go and I'm going to go. So the first Sunday that I'm in college and I get to choose, will I go on a Sunday morning or will I sleep in? Mm-hmm. That's a very big decision that someone's making on a Sunday morning. And so at ORU, we see it, I think, in a different way. Being a Christian university, I think more of the pressure on is finding community, where a lot of students want to find community more than just a Sunday worship experience. Mm-hmm. And so our conversation is less with students about finding a church. It's about finding community. And I think we'll get into that a little bit later too, but that's what we usually see.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. Now, you've been at ORU for about 9 years, you mentioned before the interview. Could you give us an overview of your strategy there to connect the students with local churches or the communities and the way that works out practically?
That's a great question. The goal for ORU is, we're building whole leaders for the whole world. We want to develop students that lead in every career path. But what's universally needed for every career path, no matter what path God has you on, is that we need to be plugged into the local church, that there is an absolute necessity, especially in our culture and our world today that's so globalized and can be so online as well. We've seen the value of in-person relationships, having community, people that you can call when you're in a tough spot, or connecting with people that are older than you that can invest into you, and not just peer relationships, talking about generations older. And so one thing that we really encourage through ORU is that, hey, we provide a lot for you as a student, but one thing we cannot provide or ever replace is that community of the local church. When you have intergenerational connection, you have a regular place of worship. And ultimately, we encourage that, hey, informing them that ORU may be for a season of your life, but the local church should be forever. And so some of the practical ways that we've really honed that is, one, through our language, making sure we never step into spaces on campus that should be more held by the local church. And so, hey, we can supplement, but we're not going to try to take over a Sunday morning experience for you, or provide discipleship outlets that, honestly, it's better if there's seasoned local church pastors that can do that kind of thing for you. So that's one, is vocabulary, language that we use on campus. Two, we offer outlets for students to connect with local churches. So local churches will often come on campus, either promoting internships, opportunities, volunteer stuff. And so we welcome that. We want churches in our community to be upfront with students and to build a relationship with them on campus. And then one of the ways that we really love doing that is with an event we call Church Rush. And Church Rush is where we bring together about 35 local churches in our community, bring them to campus, host them, and they just set up for a few hours on the day. And it's kind of an event everyone knows about every year at ORU. And students go by and just visit all these pastors and leaders at different churches, different denominational backgrounds, different sizes of churches, different parts of the city, and all of them offering different opportunities to connect, some much more discipleship or small group oriented, Some just, hey, come worship with us on Sunday. And others saying, hey, we need young people to lead. We need young
Oh,
musicians. We need youth volunteers, outreach people to serve. So if a student's looking for a very specific way to connect in a community, we have a variety of churches we offer. So I think Church Rush is very successful at getting students exposed to different local church gatherings.
Augustine, we have a lot of parents who are listening, and some of whom are sending their kids off to college this month, and they are anxious. For those who will be expecting to do that in the next year or two, what can parents do to become part of that process of involvement with a local church in another city?
That is a wonderful question. I'm so glad you asked that because I do talk to a lot of parents of students that are coming to ORU, but also just sending their kids off to college all over the world. And I think one thing that I would encourage parents to keep in mind is that the type of questions they ask their student is very important. Um, the majority of questions that I usually hear from parents to their students is about very specific things at college.
Hmm.
But I don't know a lot of parents that, when they jump on their first Zoom call with their student after they've moved in and maybe they're at college for a couple of weeks and they get on that Zoom call to say, hi, how is it? Like, are you meeting people? How are your classes? They go through all the normal questions. I don't know a lot of parents that say, hey, so as you've been there for a few weeks, what does local church look like? What churches are standing out? Hey, you went to that church. How was it? Tell me about the pastor. And so I think having parents really keep a category of questions about local church engagement for their students and kind of thinking about those ahead of time. Like, what are the things that you should be asking your student when it comes to local churches? Sometimes that might just be, have you gone in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks? But beyond that, it's, hey, you went to this church. What do you like about it? Tell me more about it. What did the pastor speak on? And so really those questions indicate to your student, oh, my parents think this is valuable. But if you simply ask, did you go to church this Sunday? Yes. Okay, great. Check the box. They don't really value it. They spent more time asking about my classes or my wing or the community that I have. Again, all good things, but I think what we ask questions about kind of shows the value that we have for those things. And so I'd encourage parents to really think through maybe a list of questions you want to ask your student after they've been in college for a few weeks and make it tailored specifically to the local church.
Yeah, very good, very good. And as I hear you talking, a theme that I hear over and over again is really a high value of the local church and that face-to-face interaction and the importance of that. So I would imagine that parents who have an early high schooler or an elementary age child that really building that philosophy into their family culture is crucial, especially when it comes to this time.
Mm-hmm. Very, very much so.
Yeah.
And I think, in our American culture, it's easy to treat local churches casual. And so I would just encourage parents that, I work with college students every day, and you can tell the foundation that a student has when they come to college. And a lot of it's based on parenting and the parenting cooperation or collaboration with their local church. When there's a student that comes to ORU as a freshman, as an 18-year-old, I can very quickly discern, wow, you have a strong foundation back home. Not that everything's perfect, or your church is perfect, or your family's perfect, but that they've made an effort to instill that value for the local church. But also that it's not just on the local church, that, hey, parenting and local church come together. And that's how you raise this student, this man or woman of God, that they're becoming something, and you can really tell the foundation. So the students that come in with that foundation, I find, really catapult to the next level of their leadership, their friendships, their career path much faster because they come in with an understanding of who they are in Christ or what the Bible says or the importance of serving or being plugged into a local church. And if they already have that, man, they're on track for exponential growth. So yeah, it's encouraged families to prioritize church, not just from an attendance standpoint, but an engagement standpoint. That was one thing I can shout out my parents for doing so well with me, was they didn't just bring me to church, they engaged me with church. They had me serving, they had me growing my prayer life. They had me meet with mentors and people outside of them and had me ask them questions about life and leadership. So I think it's really important that families instill an engagement with the local church before their student comes to college.
Yeah, that's great insight. As you work with these local churches there in Tulsa and you have your church rush where they come on campus, of all of those different kinds of churches, which kinds are the most successful ones in terms of welcoming students into their fellowship?
Oh, that's definitely easy. It's the ones that have a off ramp already for the students to get plugged in. If a church has to really think about how a student can engage, like they've already lost a student. Like students' attention spans are so short and they can really read through a lot of stuff. So a lot of our students, if a local church is talking to them, we want you to be a part of our church. One of the first questions I'll ask is, oh, how can I be involved? And if there's any type of hesitation or any type of oh, we'd love for you to come be a part of our community, something generic like that. Students can read past that. They want to go where they feel valued. It doesn't mean that they have to have a leadership position necessarily, but if you have an easy ramp of, our pastor meets with the young adults every Thursday for breakfast, and it's just a time of community fellowship, and we want to pour into you. Wow, that sounds so attractive for a young adult. Or we have a young adult service, or hey, on Sundays, we're really looking for musicians. We really need people who want to help lead our church in worship. When there's an easy, quick off ramp for students to get engaged, I find those churches really attract students very quickly. And what I found, which is interesting, is it really is not size dependent. Students don't really care that much about the size of the church. It could be a 100-person church, or it could be a 10,000-person church. If they have an easy off ramp for the student just wants to engage and feel like they belong. And more students from Gen Z want to be involved, not just sit and receive something. And so I'd say easy off ramp is the best key to a local church attracting students.
Our guest is Augustine Mendoza, and he is the Director of Spiritual Life at Oral Roberts University. We encourage you to check out the article, What College Students Need Most, featuring our guest in this month's The Stand magazine, and we'll put a link to that on our podcast page. If you'd like to learn more about Augustine or reach out to him, you can do that through Facebook or Instagram. Augustine Mendoza, God bless you in the work that you're doing there at ORU. Thank you so much for your insight today, for your encouragement, and we will pray for you as you continue to shepherd these young people that come into your care. Thanks for being with us.
Jeff, thank you so much.